find your p-val, because you need your calculator to find your p-val for your t-score. So for a cutoff, we're going to use table 5. Table 5, and I'm going to give you table 5, of course, has one tail, two tails across the top. Then come down to degrees of freedom. So if your degrees of freedom is always one less than your sample, everybody has a choice except the last person. So one less than your sample. Come down, go to two tailed across the top. You don't have to divide anything in half, just find the 0.05, and one is positive, one is negative. If you use your inverse t, which absolutely you can use, works like your inverse norm, same thing. You're going to say 0.05 divided by 2. There's two tails. And you're going to be a 0 and a 1. Just let me put this through, and then it's going to let me do this. Okay, it's not going to let me do this. Second. There, now it comes. As soon as I do 1, then it comes back to the right one. So my area is 0.05. I have the degrees of freedom. My area is 0.05. This time I want to say divided by 2. I have two tails. If you have one tail, divide it by 1. If you have two tails, divide it by 2. Degrees of freedom, you tell it, 19, and paste, and it'll find it for you. It'll give you the negative. And you put the negative on the left-hand side, positive on the right-hand side. Use your sketch. Label your shaded in areas, reject H0. Label it reject H0. That's all you had to do for the first two. Left tail test, pull it up, go to your table, go one tail, find the 0.005, come down to 14, and give me that number as a negative. Can everybody find the critical values? Is that you need to test with? Okay, then I just had you do one for each. No sense doing too many of them. All right, so here's your claim. Oops, nope, 37. 37. Okay. A fitness magazine advertises that the average monthly cost of joining a health club is $25. They advertise this. Does that mean they claim that? I don't know. Let me look at the last sentence. Can you reject the advertisement's claim? Yeah, that's their claim. So their claim is that the mean is $25. Mean is mu. Proportion is p. So make sure you get the right parameters. Mu is equal to 25. It has an equal sign. It's the HO. It's the claim. The HA, not equal to two tails. So start like this. Give your sketch. Shade your parts in. Reject HO. Fail to reject HO. Find your critical values. Use your table. Use inverse T. Find your critical values. Everybody okay with that part? Okay. This is your test statistic. You take all your sample information. I'm reading across. You find a random sample of 18 clubs. Now, you're in the same sentence that has a mean monthly cost of that sample and has a standard deviation of that sample. So this is your sample information. I have N is 18, my sample mean, my sample standard deviation. Standard deviation, t-score. So we pull up your t formula, and we plug everything into it. And we put it in our calculator correctly, use the alpha key, make a fraction, and find your value. This is your test statistic. You want to see where does it fit. So the zero's in the middle. So as I read from left to right, I'm about here. I'm before the 1.74. So I'm in the fail to reject. This is my decision. Fail to reject H0. So when I ask for a decision, I either want fail to reject H0 or reject H0. Now is your interpretation. If you fail to reject it, and to kind of go along with it. But we go to your chart, we say, claim is HO, I failed to reject HO, I have to say it this way. There is not enough evidence at a level of significance of 0.10 to reject the advertisement's claim that the mean monthly cost of joining a health club is $25. I want this statement. Okay. If you'd use your calculator, the calculator is, if you're going to look for p-value, you have to do it on your calc. You come down here, we're not a z-test because we're using a sample standard deviation, because if you hit this, it's looking for population standard deviation. So that tells me I went to the wrong one. So I am a T, because there's my sample standard deviation. So I put my mean in from my statement, my sample information, box it in. There's your, is that 0.25? 0.25. Here's your sample standard deviation. It wants N, and it wants you to come down and say where your tail is. So I'm a not equal and a calculate. There's my test statistic. There's my p-val. So 0.1190 if you round. If you did a p-val test, do a level of significance. Here's my level of significance, 0.10. Fill this in, and this is still greater than. This is still going to be failed to reject H0. I will again give you that chart with the p-val test and the interpretation part for you. So the p-val can only be found on your calculator. Questions? Good. All right, and the last one I gave you was just another P, a proportion one, just so that we visit that again. The polling agency reports that over 60%, over means what? Greater than. So there's my claim. P, proportion, percent, begin with a P. Just flip that to a decimal. Proportion greater than 60% or 0.60. That's my claim. That's my HA. My HA is where my tail is. To the right, I have a right tail test. Label. Find your cutoff. When I work with my P, I'm using a z-score again. So inverse norm works perfect for this. Again, second bears. Inverse norm. Your area is 0.01. And leave those there. Paste. Now I'm one-tailed, so I notice that this is negative 2.33. I look at my graph, and I'm on the positive side. I make it positive 2.33. Okay? That's my critical value. I pull out my sample information. Here's my sample. 298 students. 167 of them said the federal government was, the bailouts were bad. So this is the piece of information that they gave me. If I use my calculator step, it fits in perfectly. Let's go to your calculator for this. Stat test. I'm in a one proportion Z test. So I have my proportion statement, 0.60. Make sure you use decimals for this. My X is 167 out of 298, right? I am a greater than tail, and I'm going to calculate. This also, there's three P's here. P hat is dividing this. This is your P hat. There's my P hat right there, 0.56. This is my original statement. From my population, my proportion is greater than 0.6. This is my p-val. Because my p-val, here's my z-score, it's negative. Because my tail is to the right, I want the area to the right, which is why this is so big. Okay, so you can pull up your p-val there if you like. You can pull off your z-score there, or you can run through your formula. To run through your formula, you need a p-hat. So don't forget, this is how we find your p-hat. Part over whole, make a ratio, run it through. Here's your negative 1.41. It is in the fail to reject H0, and your p-val was very large. Your p-val, again, was fairly large. I think it was bigger than this, wasn't it? It was 9 something, wasn't it? Let's see if it was 0.9185. So somewhere over there, it was larger than your level of significance. So we're still failing to reject H0. Now, when you fail to reject H0, this guy, that means you can't support this claim. So again, the word support meant that we had an HA claim. There's not enough evidence at a level of significance of 0.01 to support the claim that more than 60% of U.S. adults felt that the bailouts were harmful, bad for the U.S. Okay? Are we good with this? Questions at all? So this is what your test is going to look like. Some t-score, some p. And again, I'll just put all the t's together. Then as soon as you get a proportion, you're in the p part. I'll give you both formulas, which will kind of help you see which one you need to use. I'll give you table 5, table 4. And this is our last test.